For more analysis, we're joined from Washington by Mrs. Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Welcome to Qnews, Mrs. Ginger. Now, U.S. President Donald Trump recently acknowledged famine in Gaza, contradicting, of course, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Given his previous alignment with Israel and harsh stance on aid, how significant is this shift, and could it mark a turning point in U.S. policy on Gaza?
Well, thank you, Hala, for having me today. And greetings to your viewers. And actually, Donald Trump's acknowledgement of the starvation in Gaza is a half measure because it has become unavoidable between the media reports and the footage we're seeing from Gaza and the international outcry from every other nation in the world has put America and President Trump in a situation where Trump can no longer deny the starvation and however, he has not acknowledged the killing that has happened. He has not acknowledged the concentration camps where the American Gaza Humanitarian Foundation, along with the IDF, are using food as bait to lure people out where they are then killed by the IDF. So Trump has acknowledged the starvation. However, it is because he is forced to. He can no longer ignore it. Most notably, he is not acknowledging the ongoing crimes, the ongoing humanitarian crisis, the lack of electricity, medicine, in addition to lack of food and water. And indeed, we saw President Trump boycott the 3-day conference occurring right now at the United Nations. This conference is very significant because the speakers are calling for action instead of just words and resolutions. Now is the time to act, and we are running out of time. And it is very disappointing to the American people that President Trump is trapped by the Israeli lobby. We want him to do more, but he is unable to. He is trapped and he looks miserable.
Interesting point. While in Scotland, Trump also cut the deadline for Putin to move towards a Ukraine peace deal from 50 days to just less than 2 weeks. What message does this send to Moscow, and does it signal real frustration or political posturing, if we may say?
Well, once again, Trump is confused. He mentioned at that same meeting with Starmer in the UK that he thought 4 or 5 times he had a deal with Russia, and then it falls through. Trump is ignoring that Russia has been very consistent. Putin has had the same demands the entire 3 years of the Ukraine conflict. No missiles, no NATO missiles on the Russian border, denazification, demilitarization, and equal human rights for the Russian-speaking people in Ukraine. Trump, his original 50-day deadline, it appeared that he was trying to buy time to decide what to do to calm down Lindsey Graham, to calm down the war hawks in his cabinet. However, yesterday's announcement that now he's shortening the time to 2 weeks, 10 days. What we are asking in America is 10 days, and then what? What are we going to do that we have not already done? Yes, and these threats of secondary sanctions, these are going to paint America and Trump into a corner he cannot get out of, because these sanctions are only going to hurt America. They're going to hurt our trading partners in the European Union, who are, Germany is deindustrializing. Energy costs have quadrupled in some places in the EU because of their cutting off their supply of cheap Russian energy. And indeed, we are seeing this nexus between Israel and Iran and Russia and Iran, because what it is appearing is that we see Israel becoming closer with England as far as Israel and their Greater Israel Project is concerned. And at the same time, with respect to Russia, We are seeing our own CIA, our State Department, along with British MI6 and Mossad, are increasing our activity in Azerbaijan and in Armenia. So while we are saying we want peace talks with Russia and we want a negotiation to the nuclear file with Iran, we are going in through the back door in northern Iran through Azerbaijan. This is like a 2-4, two birds with one stone, because we can cause civil unrest in Iran. At the same time, we are causing more unrest and insecurity on Russia's southern border. And indeed, these two conflicts are tied together because we are seeing the United States push the Abraham Accords as a vehicle for peace in the Middle East, but it is becoming apparent that the Abraham Accords are a vehicle for Israeli and American hegemony. What we are seeing is we are destabilizing countries like Syria, demilitarizing them, destabilizing them, and forcing them into the Abraham Accords, where they are
Yes.
subjugated
Yes.
to Israeli hegemony.
Yes.
And this is going to spread to Lebanon. The ultimate goal is Iran, and England and the EU want to use Iran as another pressure point on Russia. Iran and China are pillars of Russia. So if we can take out Iran, we can weaken Russia, because we're losing in Ukraine. And once we can weaken Russia through Iran, then we can focus on taking out China. So what we are seeing is unbridled aggression. America is out of control.
Yes.
Donald Trump appears helpless to stop it. And the European Union's agenda with weakening Russia.
I want to elaborate on that, Mrs. Ginger. Speaking of the European Union, Trump said that he secured a massive trade deal with the EU, but critics say that it's a thin framework with few clear concessions. Is this a genuine policy success for Trump, in your own opinion?
Well, we're seeing that Trump is confusing deals with agreements. And a deal is an arrangement worked out between two parties. An agreement is a negotiated, thought out plan that also involves the cooperation of other parties in order to push the agreement forward and make sure there's compliance. And indeed, what we are seeing when Mark Rutte came from NATO a couple of weeks ago, and with Ursula von der Leyen, we are seeing the European come to Donald Trump and flatter him. It appears that flattery is his weak point, and all of this flattery is making Trump believe that he is accomplishing these deals. As you have noted, Hala, these deals are very loose frameworks. They are not detailed agreements, and it looks like the EU, the European Union, has just become the largest vassal state of America. Indeed, we cannot really supply them with the energy they need. And what we are doing is, as they're becoming energy poor, we are taking their businesses. They're deindustrializing. We are luring their businesses to America. This is also what we're doing with Taiwan. We say we want to protect Taiwan. They have the semiconductor chip industry that we value, yet we see Donald Trump luring the Taiwanese semiconductor chip industry to America, which will weaken Taiwan economically. So we have a very chaotic strategy that undermines our allies, that weakens our trading partners, and ultimately...
But it's confusing for me, Mrs. Ginger, because the press described that meeting between President Donald Trump and Ursula von der Leyen, saying that Trump ate von der Leyen for breakfast, which indicated that the deals were in favor of the United States rather than the EU, and many European officials criticized the deal. How do you see it?
Well, we are seeing Trump push through one-sided deals. He says this is to make up for decades of the United States being on the short end of the deal. However, and to say that Trump ate von der Leyen's lunch, once again, we're seeing the European Union leaders none of whom are elected by the European people. For example, Ursula von der Leyen has never been elected. She is appointed. She answers to Brussels, not the European people, who are becoming increasingly angry. We're seeing these populist movements gain power, which is why the leaders are running scared of their own people. They're desperate to show any sort of progress. So Ursula von der Leyen walks home with a deal in hand. It appears to be a success for her, for Trump. They each appear to get what they want, but these are very shallow deals that do not address any of the root causes that are creating the conflicts. So these may be hollow victories. And once again, for example, the deal Trump got with NATO for them to increase spending to 5% of GDP in exchange for ongoing weapons flow to Ukraine. This deal was bad for Trump because they don't increase their spending to 5% until 2030, 2 years after Trump is out of office. So we have no way to enforce that. The only result is Europe got what they wanted, which is more American weapons flowing to Ukraine. Trump looks good because he says now they're paying us for them. But in the long run, this continues to damage the United States and Europe. Ukraine is continuing to lose men on the battlefield. They're continuing to lose territory. Russia will press ahead on the battlefield because that is the only thing they can do. They have no negotiating partners left in the United States or in Europe. And as we see in the Middle East, the entire world is going to move ahead without America and Israel because we have bullied them into submission. Once again, we're using the Abraham Accords as a stealth tool. It masquerades as a peace agreement, but is really a vehicle for military hegemony. So yes, you are correct, Hala. This is very confusing. It's very chaotic. Part of it is Trump is no longer living up to the promises he campaigned on. His voters and supporters see that he has been captured by the Israeli lobby and also by the neocons in his government. And the American people, actually, Trump's poll numbers are dropping with his most important voters, the young people that came to him as an alternative, the working class, minorities, ethnic groups. So he is dropping in the polls. At the same time, other America First candidates, such as Marjorie Taylor Greene and Thomas Massie, Rand Paul, they're all stepping up, and we are seeing Trump's base flock to them.
Okay.
So this is also setting up a civil war between America First and, surprisingly, Trump and the Israeli lobby on the other side, as we've seen the silencing of the pro-peace members of his cabinet. We see Tulsi Gabbard has been sidelined. And the other thing I would like to mention is we saw the turning point was in March when Steve Witkoff and Donald Trump, they had worked out negotiations with Hamas in exchange for the hostages, a clear, defined path towards a lasting peace beyond the end of the slaughter, the conflict in Gaza. And in March, suddenly Trump adopted Netanyahu's view and said, no, we're not negotiating an end to the war. We are just going to have a 60-day ceasefire. We're just going to have a few hostages returned. So essentially something happened in March where Trump adopted Netanyahu's...
Which brings me to my final question to you, Mrs. Ginger, because from threatening secondary sanctions on Russia to floating food distribution in Gaza, Trump is presenting himself as a problem solver, an advocate of peace. Is this genuine diplomacy or an attempt to serve his previous promises to end all wars once he returns to office?
Well, it appears to be more than just lip service to his previous positions and his previous promises. It appears that he is saying that he wants to end these wars but he does not accept that we are belligerents in this war. So Trump is trying to act in the role of a peace broker, a negotiator. At the same time, we are supplying weapons and we are an active participant.
Yes.
And this internal conflict is becoming too much for him to live up to both sides. That is why we are seeing the chaos. He cannot play two roles. He cannot serve two masters.
Exactly.
The result is chaos and confusion.
Yes. Well, I'd like to thank you so much, Mrs. Ginger Chapman, lawyer and political analyst. Thank you so much for your valuable insights. Always pleasure having you with us here on Q News. Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes today's episode of In Focus. I'm Hala Al-Hamalawi. Thank you so much for joining us. Stay tuned for more updates here on Q News.